Okay, guys, let's start. So what about we are going to talk today is a topic. It's about the brand management. So it's one of the key important things that we are having now. It's brand management during the crisis, especially during COVID-19, which is the most popular topic nowadays. So if here there are marketeers of people who are connected to marketing stuff or branding or sales, they will know what's the brand in general. So generally the brand is a kind of service. It's a group of things or a product that differentiates something from the others. So if in general we look around, we can see everything which is kind of brand: the airlines, the things that we eat, the things that we wear, that the things that we choose to fly, or anything else is a kind of brand. So if they are, some of them are awesome developed, some of them they have things to do, there is still place to develop. However, they are the part of our daily life, and most of the time unconsciously we are engaged to them, and most of the time we just ignore them. So now I'm not going to talk about the brand, its identity and everything else, since I guess that in the future we will have a long classes dedicated to brand management and to brand communication. So we will go to cover these topics at that time. Now we'll talk about this crisis influence on brands. So what happened actually during this crisis? As we know that this pandemic was a really harmful for businesses, and many businesses just get bankruptcy. Like 2 days ago I saw that one of the most leading, that Hertz, maybe many of you know this company, which was a renting car company, just got bankrupt. So this is a kind of signal that this pandemic had a really harmful effect on many businesses and many brands. So what happened, first of all, that the huge part of the brands had a low demand, and as a result, the consumption. Why? Because everybody were locked at houses, everybody were locked at their homes, so there were nowhere to go, nothing to do. And for example, nobody was thinking about buying shoes or bags, for example, or buying new cell phones or going on a vacation. For this reason, many brands had a low demand, and as a result, the consumption goal went down. So of course, it brought to decrease in sales, and this is the point of why many of them had a low cash flow. And perhaps even in your surrounding, even through your friends and I don't know, relatives, that many businesses even in Armenia and around the world started to fire their employees. We will talk about this fact also. However, I can say that this is a negative point from the part of the brand. But not looking at these negative impacts, we can say that this pandemic had also positive impacts on some brands. For example, some products had a high demand. Let's say about alcoholic products, like which are selling in pharmacy. I mean, these alcohol gels or kind of antibacterial sheets or something like that, or the masks and pharmaceutical other attributes got a really high demand. And what happened, that many people and many companies who weren't involved even in pharmaceutical sector started to produce this kind of products. Since there is a high demand, not only in one country, two countries, but all over the world. If you see, for example, in Spain, there was a really crisis of this kind of products. So for this reason, many just they acted very rapidly and started to produce this kind of stuff, since that for some companies that was a method to generate revenue or kind of cash flow in order to pay their employees. Another impact that COVID-19 had on brands, that was the digitalization. We know that in the recent years, we're all living in a digital world. Yes, we are doing our shopping online. We are doing our payments or transfers online. Everything we are doing online. However, we haven't thought before that perhaps in one day or just in some days, the whole world will pass to a digital channel. So everybody sitting at their home, they are doing classes, they are doing their jobs, they are doing everything on an online system. There were also companies or some kind of small companies, or small or medium, which for example, didn't have delivery services, which didn't have any application or website. And they were very quick to just settle a kind of application, just to do delivery services or online services, which were very important nowadays. So we have still participants to come. Just a minute. Yeah, and we can say that we didn't expect such kind of upside down in our life, and nowadays we just got to used to do everything on online system. From some point of view, this is a good thing. For some point of view, that's not. Another issue that nowadays the companies are struggling is the consumer loyalty. We will talk about this just some minutes later. However, I can say that customer loyalty is a really important thing for any kind of brand. That doesn't matter. This is a Coca-Cola, or this is a Philip Morris, or just is a small company situated, I don't know, in kind of city, small city. Every company has nowadays to deal with consumer loyalty, because if there is something going wrong in this crisis, since this is a vulnerable moment for any kind of brand, they can lose their consumers. They can lose because there are a lot of alternatives nowadays, and the consumer can go to the competitor. So for this reason, they should do their best to keep the consumer loyalty. So, do consumers want to hear from brands? Yes, they do. Actually, sitting at their houses, you know, guys, maybe you have also that have felt what's going on, this pressure, this stress, this news. When you scroll your news feed in Facebook or in other social media channels, you see that there is all negative things. So, what consumers want to hear from the brands, they want to hear topics or things, information without any anxiety or stress. So if you are a brand, you are a representative of a company, you should communicate with your consumer, you should communicate your customer without spreading anxiety and stress, because everyone is fed up to hear that stressful things, that annoying no thoughts, etc. So you should keep them informed. This is very important, and you should have a right communication. You should look at your communication strategy, what you are going to tell your customer. Even if you are nowadays, if I'm not mistaken, many countries just they opened their not maybe shops, restaurants, or I mean some things somewhere where people can go, and before that, just not many, the majority of restaurants were closed, the cafes were closed, many brands didn't produce anything because the employees didn't come to the job, etc., to the work. And even at this time, you should communicate with people. You should communicate in a way to calm them down, or to tell something which can have a positive impact on a daily life, which can just rise their mood, or something that will be kind of that the customer can feel that their brands, their favorite brand, is caring about them. This is the most important fact in the communication. Just 2 or 3 days ago, I was reading a very interesting article in Harvard Business Review. It was about crisis management. And the most important point in it, there were 9 points, important points in it. So the first one was the communication. even if you are in a bad situation at your job, even if you are an employee or an employer or a customer, in each kind of situation, their communication is the most essential part. So consumers' expectation during crisis is really interesting. These things are gathered is the base of the data, which was collected also at Harvard University. So consumers expect from the brands at this time to focus on producing goods that can help people to meet pandemic challenges. So as I have mentioned previously, there are companies that could in a short time, just yeah. Yes, Gada, you're right. Since yes, that you noticed right, because we have this issue also in Armenia. We will talk about it a bit later also. Just producing things that could help people to meet pandemic challenges. It can be pharmaceutical things, it could be or kind of different other things. This is really nice thing, and I can say that for example, Procter and Gamble, you know, perhaps this is a giant company. Procter and Gamble's, what did they do? They started to produce these alcoholic products, which is antibacterial products. It wasn't in their product line. However, in the short term, they could manage to do this. Of course, this requires other resources. It could be perhaps expensive to do so for small and medium companies. However, if you are coming up to a kind of solution with this kind of solution that could be very helpful and can consumer feel a bit precious, this is really nice. Another thing that consumers expect to do, the brands, is discounted or free of charge products to unemployed or vulnerable groups or healthcare employees. I can affirm that many companies all over the world did this. For example, Taco Bell, if you know this food chain, which is in the United States especially, Taco Bell, if I'm not mistaken, for they were giving people, healthcare employees, free of charge lunches or sandwiches, that kind of things, or hotels groups did the same. I can say also in our country, in Armenia, some hotels came up with this kind of approach to give places for healthcare employees not to go home and stay at hotels. This is another nice approach from the brand. So any brand and a company does something based on its resources, how can help, because you know, guys, this is a moment for important moment for all over the world. So we are caring for each other. It doesn't matter we are situated in Armenia, we are situated in China, Spain, in Italy. Everybody nowadays has the same problem, and it is important to deal with this problem together, since this is a crisis, unfortunately, for everybody in this world. Another important thing that consumers expect is the collaboration with government, NGOs, or healthcare institutions. Why? Since in this case, in this situation, people consider government or NGOs which are connected to somehow to the issues related in the country, and healthcare institutions to be the responsible of the situation. And they expect brands to collaborate with them in order to overcome this kind of crisis and this kind of situation. As I mentioned, the most important point is communication, and as a result, the society, the people, the customers are waiting kind of communication. And even if you don't have kind of content that you Guyana mentioned, if you don't have the content to share, for example, if you are not working, your company is locked, it is closed, so you just can't communicate with tell that you are producing this thing. So it doesn't matter. You should tell about something that could be very useful for your society and for your customers, and continue to work as you did before. So you should do your job. So you should think about your brand identity, your brand image, your company, and first of all, also your customers. And about brand communication, there are some examples, general examples that maybe all from the brands that you know, like Coca-Cola advertising. This was the Coca-Cola advertising in New York Times Square. So staying apart is the best way to stay united. Another nice thing that I liked very much, it was from Nike. If you ever dreamed of playing for millions around the world, now's your chance. Play inside, play for the world. This was a kind of really interesting kind of campaign, perhaps, or a post that Nike posted on all its social media channels, and many sport, I mean, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo, Michael Jordan, and there were many others who also shared this. And this was really inspiring. And just a moment, we have still participants to connect. Okay. So also the same did Burger King, the same did also McDonald's, to tell people to stay at home and just enjoy their lunches. If you even look some interesting pages like about communication and branding during this time, you will see many interesting examples. So how brand can be useful during COVID-19? First of all, as we talked about communication and sharing information, this covers the educating people. So your content, your message should be clear and should be educating without spreading any kind of anxiety. Another thing that you can come up is low prices offers. So there is a low demand of many products and low consumption, you can offer things which have low or discounted prices, and this is a method for you to generate a cash flow and also for customer to obtain your product. Encourage social distancing is the most popular topic nowadays that everybody are spreading. I can say that everybody is following this rule. However, this is most important thing that brands are communicating, and this is one of the most important parts of their strategy to do during this time. Producing virus-related products. As we have already talked about this, not all companies can manage to do this. However, if you are a company or you are in a company that can do this based on your resources, that would be very awesome. Storytelling is another very interesting topic. We will talk about this if we have long-term classes. So why it is important? It is important since through your storytelling you are going to teach people, you are going to share your information, or perhaps the experience of your employees or your company that could be very helpful for your customers also. So brand expectation from consumers during the crisis. If you are representing a brand or a company, you should be like ready that perhaps you will have customers that will pass to your competitor. And the reason, as I have mentioned, could be the wrong communication, perhaps many other better offers or something like that. In order to have this leader, I mean, steps go up, not down. You should have, first of all, right communication, right strategy in order to gain your customer trust during this crisis. People are very vulnerable nowadays. They are very stressed and they need something that they can calm down. In order to have, if you have this customer's trust, you then go to brand loyalty. If you have the brand loyalty, you can be the brand leader in a market. So brand loyalty is a very important thing. As we mentioned, it's about the customer loyalty or brand loyalty. That's in the branding or in brand management, that has a really essential role. About this, we will talk about in our long term classes. So some recommendations for brands, as I have already mentioned, this is the communication with audience. You can use also some hashtags or kind of things. I will show the sample of hashtags, how brands are communicating. Be active. So if you don't have any kind of content, just generate something, just tell your consumers at least good morning or have a nice day, something like that. This is the minimal thing that you can do. Provide assistance, come up with solutions that can help community, that can help you, at least your customers. You can entertain or inform. This is another thing that you maybe have noticed. Some artists, singers, or actors, just they were entering live in Instagram or in other social channels. They were entertaining people, and because people are sitting at home, they have nothing to do. So this is a really another nice approach to entertain people. Put the employees before your bottom line. This is the point that I would like to talk. If you are a company and you know, if you talk to your customers that they are precious for you, that you know, they are important for you, but at the same time you're firing your employees, you know that this is going to be very bad for you as a brand, as a company. I know that nowadays it is very difficult to handle this situation, and some companies are going to fire their employees. However, you know, if the customer is aware of this fact, that has a negative impact, since first of all, he doesn't believe you that you are caring, because you don't put your employee before your profit. So in order to show that you are caring about them, you should show your also that you are caring about, first of all, your employees. Try to handle this situation not to fire employees, because this is really bad, and many researches and also facts show this. And another most important thing is being transparent during this situation. So like people can feel, the customer can feel what is transparent, what is real, what's wrong. And in order to have the customer trust, just be transparent, be as you were before this crisis. So communicate with them, try to help them, and do your job, what you were doing before. These were some samples about the hashtags, for example, like top industries that use this communication mostly in this time were airlines, finance, telecom, gambling, industrial sectors. And they were also using some hashtags. You can see there the number of hashtags. However, this was the result, if I'm not mistaken, from April. If you go this website, mention this here at the bottom, socialbakers.com, you can see many about things and facts about the communication during COVID-19, and perhaps it could be very useful for you too. So this session was a bit short, and if you have any kind of questions regarding this topic, we can discuss now, and the other part we can discuss during our long sessions. Are there any questions connected to the things that I covered today?
Can I ask so?
Yes, sure, Ganajan.
Okay, Mariam. So I understand that you don't recommend to, you recommend the brands to do all their best not to fire people in these times of pandemic, because this is bad, you said. You mean bad for brand, or for people who are going to be fired? And if it is bad for brand, will you please elaborate a bit more about this?
So what, sorry?
If it is bad for brand, please elaborate a bit about this. How do you think this affects the brand?
Okay. For example, I wouldn't like to mention the companies that I know just in Armenia that they did this thing. So they started to fire people, and it was like in the middle of March. You know that
Mhm.
the pandemic started, for example, in Armenia at the beginning of March. In the middle, it wasn't so high, so not many people were infected. However, they started to fire people. From my point of view, this is not fair, because the companies that did this were really big ones, and they should be ready. They should have already a strategy for force major situations, for a crisis, even if something goes wrong. And you should have a kind of cash flow in order to survive at least 2 months. Just if you are at the beginning of the pandemic, you are firing your employees. I mean, for big companies, I know that small companies are struggling. Perhaps they can come up with different solutions. But if you are a company, big company, or if you are one of the leading banks, so you shouldn't
Mhm.
do that. Because if I'm a customer and I know that what's going on in this kind of company, I
Mhm.
just can't trust him. If he's
Mhm.
firing his employees in order to make profit, more profit, to generate more revenue, I I, I understand from the perspective of the business. However, as a consumer, that's not. I just don't trust that kind of companies. Uh, each company, this situation showed everybody that none of them had a real force major situation or crisis management strategy. But somehow in a short period they should be very flexible to overcome and to understand in which direction to go, and not to do this. I mean, not to fire people first of all. And you as a consumer, if you hear, for example, that a giant company, if you, for example, know about that Coca-Cola is firing, I don't know, 2,000 employees, you as a consumer will think what's going on in this company. So this Coca-Cola is a giant in the market, so why it doesn't have enough cash flow to keep these employees?
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Can I ask the second question?
Yeah, sure.
Mm. Um, have you come across with another case when new companies are starting in time of pandemic, and what core like three core advices you would give to these companies who are starting their business in the period of pandemic?
Actually, in my point of view, this is very cool moment for many companies to open, because this is a situation. It doesn't matter you are the leader of the market, or you are a big or you are small, because it's like mixing all the cards, playing cards, and start to just give away from the starting. That it's like to start something and you can compete in the market. And it's first of all, it matters in which sector the company is opening, because there are some sectors which will be very challenging. But if there is for example, in your mind, and if you think about to open a kind of business or a company, first of all, you should look at your strategy. You should look at your risk.
Okay, I will give a little bit clarity for you to be more to define better your answer. To start a business in consulting field, what
Well,
shall I focus on while thinking about branding? And can I use my name as a brand name? What do you think about this also?
consulting in which sector? Financial, marketing, business? In which sector?
Business,
Business.
entrepreneurship.
Okay. Well, in these days, consulting firms also have kind of challenges. However, many of them came up with nice solutions. For example, they did free consulting for starting businesses. They did free kind of consulting or assistance for startups, or many other small and medium enterprises that need this kind of support. This is a nice approach. So you can come with a kind of discount, it may be prices, or you can offer your consulting services for 1 month or 1.5 months to the businesses, that free of charge. Because this, first of all, this is very catchy at this moment if you look from the point of marketing. And second, it is good for you. Like you are going, just as I told, that you are supporting people in this kind of important and challenging situation, that this is good also for you too. As for the branding, the name and the logo and this kind of thing, you should think about this, that this is going to be your brand identity. I'm going also to cover some topics later, and I'm also giving lectures of brand management and brand communication, and everything covered connected to brand. This is going to be your brand identity, and it's your brand identity, you should be very picky what name or logo you are taking. So I, for example, personally, being a consultant, I had a project that we had 13 names. 13 names. I just asked the agency to give me 13 names in order to pick one name, because it's you should look first of all who is your customer. If you are just in B2B, so you are to business. In this case, you should be very attentive to select them. You should see what's trendy in the market, but not to do the copy paste, because it is very common. For example, in some countries, like everybody is selecting this kind of name. This is popular. This is good. No, it's not a right solution. So try to see, perhaps ask also some your friends or colleagues which is very which, for example, type or logo, I don't know, the name is nice, how it sounds, or if they hear this kind of, for example, name as a consulting name, they will be interested in it. Is it catchy or not? So these are, it seems to people that there are tiny things. However, I can say that they are the most essential part of a brand. If, for example, Apple didn't have this the Apple name or the logo of Apple, perhaps it wouldn't be very famous and popular nowadays. So these are very important.
What do you think about organizing an inquiry in Facebook, for example, about a brand name?
Some people do this. You can do this also, but you should be based who is answering, because people sometimes answer emotionally, like with emotions, and just it's perhaps if you can suggest them something, they can say I don't like it or I like it, and it is very subjective. But it's very psychological. You can try to do this and you can see the answers. Or perhaps if you have enough resources, you can also hire an agency, or if you have marketing friends who are in marketing or in advertising agencies, they can also help you. However, if not, this is another interesting point. For example, I sometimes do surveys in Facebook or in other social channels in order to get some answers to my questions.
Thanks. Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you too.
I have one question.
Okay.
If a brand, let's say, who does retail, and the brand is coming out with a lot of rules, like they announce with their customers rules when they engage with the customer, like we will take your temperature when we come in, we will do this, we'll do that, we only limit 2 people in the shop at one time, etc. Versus another competitor who doesn't have any rules and it lets the customer to self-discipline. Which have you done any research and that shows that which one would a customer prefer to go to? A shop that has many rules and that sometimes can be a bit annoying, or they would rather just go to the shop where there's not so many rules?
Okay, first of
Or
all,
it's
I
new.
would like to tell you guys that we had our time is going to end. If you then will have questions, you can just write to our email or by a message from the Facebook web page. I will answer to them. And what's your name, Jamie? If yes.
Yes, Jamie, yeah.
Jamie, I will ask you, Jamie, also to write your questions since I didn't hear clearly, and I will answer it. Is it okay for you?
Okay, I'll write it here.
Okay, so admin will send you an email or a Facebook page link, so you can write there your questions and I will answer to all your questions. This is about all participants if you have any other questions regarding this topic. Okay. Hello.